Hi guys, what is up? It has taken me a hot minute to finish Lord of Chaos, but I finally did, and so much stuff happened. So I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys. So, okay, Lord of Chaos opens with what is probably the longest prologue I've ever read in my entire life. It's seriously longer than some short stories that I've read. But it was really good. I thought it did a really good job at setting the scene for everything that's going to happen in this book, and it focused a lot on the Forsaken, and I really like that because I really like reading about them. Especially, I really like Grendel, and I swear Masana isn't even introduced until this book. So when she first comes up in the prologue, I was like, who is this? But yeah, so right off the bat, this book is definitely a lot slower than the two before it. So the Shadow Rising and the Fires of Heaven, it seemed like so much happened in both of those books where they were just kind of like moving along at a very fast pace, and it helped like the 1,000 page length go by very quickly. And it felt like Lord of Chaos started off like that. Like it seemed like it was at a really high start or like a really fast start. So we start off with Rand, and he's now I guess, the king of Camelin, and everyone thinks that Morgase is dead. So he's kind of like trying to navigate the politics in Camelin, where half of them probably hate him because of Morgase, and then the rest of them also hate him, but they're like all sucking up to him because they want to gain power. And he has started this amnesty for men who can channel, where he is teaching them and training them. And at the beginning of the book, we see Mazrim Taim, the false dragon from the earlier books, who comes and he tells Rand that he wants to join this amnesty. And so Rand lets him, or not lets him, but tells him that he wants him to teach the rest of the other men because Rand himself obviously is very busy being the Dragon Reborn. He doesn't have time to just oversee the day to day of his school slash amnesty. And as soon as we meet Mazrim Taim, Lews Therin and Rand's head starts screaming and losing his shit, screaming about how he needs to kill him, kill him. And so to me, it seems very obvious that Mazrim Taim is most likely one of the Forsaken. Um, I was thinking Demandred because we know Samael's and um, Ilian, and he's not one of the female. I mean, I guess he could be. No, he can't. He's a man who channels. Um, so yeah, I thought that the whole time I was like, okay, I know that this like crazy man is in your head and screaming things, but there's some times that I feel like you should listen to him. And every time Rand thinks about the Forsaken, Lews Therin starts screaming like, "Oh, kill him!" And it's the same thing whenever he sees Mazrim Taim. So that was really interesting, and it was definitely like was very intriguing. Like from the start, I was like, okay, there's obviously something wrong here. Like even if he isn't one of the Forsaken, he's definitely not a good character, like a good not a good character, but not like a good person that's walking in the light. Um, and so that set up a lot that I was hoping was going to be resolved in this book. And as I said, this book starts off very fast paced. It feels like it kind of hits the ground running and then starts to meander a little bit in the middle where it was a long book. Like on my Kobo, it was 1,200 pages, and it didn't really seem like that much happened, at least like 1,200 pages worth of stuff. So we have that. We have Mazrim Taim and Rand at the beginning. We also see that Rand is planning something with Samael and Ilian, where he's trying to plan some sort of trick with Mat, where they like lure Samael out into battle, and then I guess they're trying to like take him by surprise and then like get him from behind if he's focused on this big like tyrant army that isn't actually going for him. And once again, I was expecting the book to end with that, but it didn't. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, it's obviously nice when things like when the story takes like an unexpected turn and twist. It's just something that did make me feel like the book was a little slow because they do like build up this whole thing and then they're like going towards it so slowly, and then we don't have a resolution for that. But again, that's okay, and we don't have to end each book with like one of the Forsaken dying. I was also surprised that no one really seems to mention Asmodene that much. Like even Rand, I think he's like thinks about him once in the book and he's like, oh, he like ran away. And I'm like, no, like is no one else is like concerned about this? I guess not. Um, And I feel like nothing much happened. I'm trying to think of like stories by character. So that was Rand. I feel like nothing much happened with Matt. So we start with him near in a small town. I think it was near Camelin. And he gets up in the middle of the night and he's like, okay, we got to go and we got to make it seem like we're leaving in a hurry, but we have to make it obvious that we're seeming like we're in a hurry so that it gets Samael's attention. And then while he's traveling with his band of I don't want to say the Red Hands, with his band of like Dragonsworn, um, they're not Dragonsworn, but they get attacked in the night by some Aiel. And that was very, I guess I'm assuming that they were like Shido Aiel, like Couladin's old tribe, and I guess Savannah's now. But it was still like very unexpected to see this. And we do know that there's some sort of going ons with the Shido Aiel and the tower, like the proper White Tower, so Elida and them, because from the prologue we see that they're setting up some sort of deal, and then obviously at the end of the book, when they capture Rand, we see that the Shido were involved with that. But obviously there's like a lot of backstabbing, and we don't fully know their involvement together just yet. So I'm really excited to find that out in coming books. And so then we also start with Perrin, who's Lord of the Two Rivers, and he's with Fael, and we see the beginning from Fael's perspective. And just as usual, she's just being very bratty and very, I don't want to say entitled, but I feel like she's just so like rude to Perrin, and then she just brushes it off, being like, "This is how I am," or like, "This is how Saldean women are," and I don't know, I really don't like her. I'm happy for her and Perrin, I guess, but I really dislike her as a character. And then we see the Aes Sedai in Saladar. So that would be Egwene, not Egwene, sorry, Elaine, Nynaeve, Swan, Leanne, and then like Sheriam and like the new tower. And obviously they have Merrigan with them, who's actually Moghedien, which was kind of terrifying to read about this. Not because I thought that like she would get away, obviously, if she had the Adam Adam. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the necklace and the bracelet that Elaine made based on like the Sanshan um, contraption that basically like binds you to somebody else and doesn't let you use the power on your own or like take the thing off yourself or walk anywhere without the bracelet. So not because I felt that she was going to get free, but just because, and I know Nynaeve mentions it a lot in the book, but I was like, if anyone other than I guess Swan and Leanne finds out what's going on here, like you are all going to die. And as Nynaeve even mentioned, she's like all these secrets from like ages before where Moghedien was alive and powerful are going to die with her. And so it was definitely like a balance of Nynaeve being like, I'm making all these discoveries, but also trying to balance it with like, okay, well, it can't be too many that it's suspicious, but it has to be enough that they are like interested and are not just gonna like forget about me. And so it was definitely like quite tense to read about that. Um, I really liked the Saladar parts of this book, like the parts with Elaine and Nynaeve, even though I still really dislike Elaine as a character. I think the more the books goes on, the more I dislike Elaine. I think she's still very bratty. I think that she's very like haughty and entitled. And I know that's like how she's described and how she's supposed to be a lot, but she's just like I think it's always the way she thinks about Rand whenever she thinks about him, and she's like, I can't wait to meet up with him again so I can find him and make him my warder. And it's like, girl, like someone needs to talk to you about consent. You can't just like assume that you will bind him to be your warder against his will. And speaking of that, obviously that's exactly what happens in this book with Alana, and that completely took me by surprise when Rand meets up with her and Varen in the tavern in Camelin with all the Two Rivers girls. And he's like, "What did you do? Like, what was that feeling? What did you just do to me?" And she's like, "It's nothing. Like, I just bonded you." I was reading that and I was like, "What?" Like, this is definitely going somewhere I was not expecting. I'm really excited to see how that's going to play out. But for now, obviously, Rand flipped and he was like, "Get out of my sight. Get the hell out of here. You're not allowed inside like the city proper of Camelin, like only into the new city." And I'll know because now we're bonded. And so he's always like he always now has her in the back of his head of like where she is and like what she's feeling. And so that's really interesting. And actually, that kind of I just thought of now when he does end up getting captured at the end of the book. I assume he probably would have been feeling some sort of like fear or shame. And did she pick up on that? Because I know that she leaves with like the Perrin and the other people from the Two Rivers to not to Perrin, actually. Perrin was in Kyrian, but like they meet up with her. And she's like leading the people from the Two Rivers to rescue Rand. And so now I'm like trying to remember if she picked up on the fact that he like was captured. But anyways, I just wanted to like say that that was a plot point that I was very shocked by, and I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. I also I know that mm, Moraine at the end of the last book before she dies. I'm still not sold on her being dead, but you know what? Well, it's going to be a read and find out moment. But before she dies, Maureen does mention not to trust any of the Aes Sedai, and I'm pretty sure she even writes. I read the books from the library, so I can't go back and reference it, but I'm pretty sure she specifies like even Varen, which was interesting because I feel like Varen seems like probably the most trustworthy out of other than like the Two Rivers girls. And I was gonna say Swan, and I'm like, no, never mind. Swan is no, she's got her own agenda. Whenever she's described as being like, oh, she seems so like aloof, but her eyes are like bird-like and watching everything. So I'm very excited to see what's going to play out, like how that's all going to play out. And so going back to what's going on in Saladar, so Nynaeve figured out how to heal people of being stilled or severed, I guess, the proper term, which was insane. When I was reading that chapter where she's healing Logain and she's like lost in thought, like fully zoning out while just like trying to like poke and prod around at like the hole where the severing was. And I was like reading it, like knowing it was coming, and I was like, oh my gosh. It actually reminded me a lot of Navani from The Rhythm of War, the fourth Stormlight Archive book, which obviously I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but where it's like you're making those like huge discoveries completely by accident, not by accident, but like while like doubting yourself and being like, oh, like I'm such a failure. If only I could be smarter like everyone else while you're making these like huge discoveries that no one else has. So that was really great. I still really like Nynaeve. I think maybe I'm in the minority because from the community, I hear a lot of people being like, oh, I hate reading about Nynaeve. She's so annoying. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see it. But I really like her and she's smart. And like, I mean, she figured out how to heal people. And I guess I'm not surprised that they didn't immediately make Swan Amerlin again. I know that she was kind of expecting that when her and Leanne were healed. And but like given how like I guess powerful she was as the original Amerlin, I was very shocked when like they were like, no, like you're kind of at the bottom now. And I know she's not healed back to her full strength, but it was still like something that was surprising, I guess, and it makes me feel bad because I really like Swan and I'm like, I just want good things for you. Like, she's such a great character. And now I'm shifting over to Kyrian. So here we have Egwene's story starts after being injured in battle with Lanfear at the end of the last book. And I think in this book, Egwene is quickly like solidifying herself as one of, if not like my favorite character. I really like Avienda as well. I think the two of them are really great. But Egwene's whole story in this book was very good. So she starts with the wise ones, and it starts with her dreaming, and she sees the the Aes Sedai from Saladar in the tower in Teleran Riod, along with Elaine and Nynaeve and Swan and Leanne. And she's like, oh, like they can't see me, or else something really bad's gonna happen. So she has to kind of avoid them and then she finally like starts to be able to become like trained again, and we can see that she's been like lying to the wise ones who are training her. And we can also see like through her time with the wise ones and with the Aiel in general that she's picking up a lot of like Aiel traditions and like customs and mannerisms. And it's there even one part I think when she sees like a servant or something and she's like, oh, I don't know why I was like annoyed at them. And it's like because that's such a like ideal thing where they're like, oh, like there's no honor in like serving people for money. So I really like that. And then when she gets summoned back to Saladar and she has that whole thing where she confesses all of her lies to the wise ones and she's like, oh, like they're gonna hate me because I went to Teleran Riod without telling them and because I'm not a real Aes Sedai. And they're like, no, it's just that you lied about it. And she's like, I know what I have to do. And then in the next chapter, it shows her like getting whipped, strapped. I don't know what the word is, but it was like the same as Avienda had done. And that was hard to read, but Egwene is so strong. She's such a strong character. I adore her. And then her getting back to Saladar and being summoned there for them to tell her that they wanted her to be the Amerlin, I was like losing my damn mind. I was like, okay, is this realistic, first of all? And I guess it is because they're like, we want somebody who we can control, someone who's strong, who's definitely like no doubt about that. And I know that they had said that Egwene was supposed to be like one of the like most like the Aes Sedai with the most potential that they had found in forever, other than Nynaeve, who obviously has that block. And I don't think that they would be able to control Nynaeve anyways, and they know that. And they're like, oh, they're remembering Egwene as a novice and not after her time with the Wise Ones, obviously. And so they're like, oh, she's timid, she's weak, she not like in the power weak, but weak-minded, weak-willed. We can bend her to like do what we want. So they're basically making her Amerlin as just a figurehead or a puppet. And when she gets there and we see her in her thoughts and she's like, I'm not going to be that puppet that they want me to be. And we see her interactions with Swan kind of asking about like actually asking what she thinks she should do versus her interactions with Sheriam, where she's like pretending to be so stupid while like leading them towards what she wants them to do. It was so great to read about. I was like, yes, I am here for like manipulative Amerlin, Aes Sedai Egwene. She is a queen. I'm ready for this. But something that did bother me, not like not that it's like an unrealistic thing or that I don't like it about the story. It just frustrated me reading about it was every time the Two Rivers folk get together, so like Egwene and Rand and Kyrian, for example, or um, I guess other than Egwene, Elaine, and Nynaeve, because they're all Aes Sedai, but when Matt meets up with them, and even like Matt meeting up with Rand, or like when Perrin meets up with Rand, I would expect something more, something that feels more like these are people who grew up together, because it's like every time they interact and they meet, all we have in their perspective and like their POVs is like them keeping secrets from each other, them like lying, hiding things, and being like, how far can I trust this person? Like, so like Matt meeting up with, I think it's a lot of it is has to do with Elaine, Egwene, and Nynaeve. Um, well, I guess Elaine isn't Two Rivers, but being Aes Sedai, because every time Rand thinks about them or Matt, he's like, I don't trust Aes Sedai like farther than I can throw. And like now that's what they are. They're Aes Sedai. And then, but you can see in their POVs that they all want the best for each other, where like obviously Elaine, Nynaeve, and Egwene are like, we want Rand to succeed. We want to like push like the Aes Sedai towards supporting Rand. And then whenever Rand thinks about them, he's like, I don't know what they want from me. Like, I don't know what these Aes Sedai, and now that Egwene and Nynaeve are with them, I can't trust them either. And I definitely get it. Like I do get where like I'm not saying it's not realistic, because I get like that mindset, especially with Rand, where it's like you are the Dragon Reborn. You've got this dead man screaming in your head. He's trying to seize control of your power. You're slowly losing grip on that control that you do have, and you don't know who to trust. And now your childhood friends are like joining this team of like people who are known for pulling the strings behind like great rulers of the world. And so it's definitely like I definitely see where it comes from, but it is still so heartbreaking to read about, because I'm like, you guys should be like the only people that you really have like for each other across the world, and like seeing you being so like mistrustful of one another is so like difficult. Basically, like I said, this book did move quite a bit slower than the last two, but it did set up a lot of interesting plot points. And I was saving the end of this for the end of the book for the end of my discussion, because obviously a lot happened there, and that was a very huge ending. And so it starts immediately when Rand is inviting the Aes Sedai from the tower, so like Elida's Aes Sedai, in to finally be like, fine, I'll meet with you. And you could kind of see that he was getting very arrogant, in the sense that he's like, oh, I can take on like however many Aes Sedai, no problem, which, he probably could. But you could see it that he was starting to get arrogant and like too trusting in himself and the power. And I think Lan even like warned him against, ooh, that reminded me of something. Anyways, I think Lan even warned him against that. And he was like, you need, that's how why he was training him to sword fight, because he was like, you're going to need to know how to actually sword fight, because you won't always be able to rely on the power. And so when Rand gets there and he sees them, and It's like the, I think, three or six Aes Sedai that he actually invited to meet him, but then there's a bunch of servants that come in and they're all females and they all have their head down. And he's noticing that none of them will look up. And my immediate thought was, oh my God, they're Aes Sedai. They're not looking up because he's going to recognize that, like in their faces. And it was so tense and so scary, kind of reading about him being like so like arrogant. And then them like shutting him off from the source and capturing him and no one knowing where he's gone. And then everyone else is like getting pissed off and they're like, what's like, he just left us again without telling us, blah, blah, blah. And it's like such a random thing to do that like for a while, no one even like I said, I got such a head start because no one even like suspected that they had captured him. And that being said, also, I did want to bring up that I really love Sulin in this book. That's all. Like, she's really funny. I really like all the Aiel. But yeah, so then they go after Rand and they finally catch up to him. And there's that huge battle at Demise Wells where Rand finally encounters Gwyn after he manages to break free. And there's like that big battle with the Shido Aiel, and Mazrim Taim comes and he brings like Rand's amnesty and he saves Rand, which seems like an unforsaken thing to do, but it does seem like something to do if you want to gain Rand's trust. And actually, no, because at the beginning of the book, the Dark One said specifically he wanted Rand to live. So yes, yeah, okay, we're still back on the Mazrim Taim Forsaken train, but that was just a really great battle. It was really great seeing it from all those different perspectives and like what it's actually like when you have a bunch of men able to use the power fighting against a bunch of Aes Sedai. And obviously, Rand being freed was amazing because, like, seeing Rand being tortured every day and, like, stuck in this little box is very hard because Rand is one of my favorite characters. I really love him as a protagonist, even though I think that was a good warning, I guess, to, like, not get too close to the sun, I guess, like, not start to think too much of yourself. And I'm assuming in, like, moving on from this that he will probably heed that lesson.
I managed to talk about this book for 20 minutes without even bringing up the biggest thing that happened, which was obviously the Aes Sedai kneeling to Rand at the end of Demise Wells. So I just wanted to quickly touch on that before ending this video. So obviously that is huge. It's the first time the Aes Sedai have ever knelt to anybody, and I think it's really great for Rand and his character because obviously throughout the series, like he's been shown to be like increasingly annoyed with the Aes Sedai like trying to get their hooks into him, and I guess like he finally started to trust Moiraine before she died at the end of book 5. And then after that, he's like, okay, no. And she tells him too, where she's like, don't trust any Aes Sedai. So he's like, no, like get them away from me. And they keep trying. And in Camelin, when the embassy from Saladar comes with the nine Aes Sedai, I think, or not the nine, with the 13 Aes Sedai to the castle, and like Min comes to warn him, and he obviously like flips out, and with Olenna bonding him without his consent or knowledge, even at first, and then obviously with what happens with the Aes Sedai from the actual tower, like Elaidah's Aes Sedai, to see him finally get so fed up that he's just like, nah, fuck this, like you kneel or you will be knelt, was the most badass line of the series so far. Maybe of the book, probably of the series. And it was crazy. It was such a big thing. I'm like, how did I forget to mention this? But yeah, so I obviously am really excited to see the implications for that in the future books. I'm sure that like their Aes Sedai, they're still going to try to like control him or, do their schemes and their manipulation somehow. That's, that's a given, goes without saying. But the fact that like it happened in the first place and it happened where people could witness it happening was crazy. And I think it's kind of showing like Rand's development, where he's just like, I'm just done with like people taking advantage of me. I'm done with like trying to like cater to people, I guess. And I'm really looking forward to see like where this takes Rand and the story in the future books. So I just wanted to quickly touch on that before I ended this video.
And so, really strong start, meandered a little bit in the middle, but you could see it was setting up quite a bit of plot points that are going to hopefully be like developed later on in the books. Obviously, I'm not even halfway through the series. There's still like so much left. And very strong ending with Demise Wells. And I also just remembered that in the epilogue, I think, or right before the epilogue, Lan comes back to the Aes Sedai camp in Saladar. And I completely forgot about that. And I'm really excited for that because obviously Lan is such a great character. I'm excited for him and Nynaeve to hopefully reunite. And there was that other thing that happened in the epilogue Moghedien being freed was huge, and I was surprised Egwene didn't have more of a guard on her. I mean, I guess you can't really do that without looking suspicious because she's just supposed to be Merrigan, like the servant woman. But it's very scary that she is free now because she is terrifying and she has a vengeance now against Nynaeve especially, but also Elaine and Egwene, and I mean probably Brigida and Avienda and all of them. So it's scary, but it's it's interesting, and like all the other books have kind of ended with the one Forsaken dying per book, and so it kind of, or more than one, I guess. Last was Lanfear and Asmodine, but anyways, so it was it was kind of seeming like they were easy targets almost, even if they're supposed to be like so feared. So having one of them like being captured and then set free at the end of this book, and none of them other ones dying, and I think Mazrim Taim being a Forsaken, gaining Rand's trust, is definitely setting up for like a lot of really exciting things to come, I'm hoping. So I have a Crown of Swords on hold at the library. It's probably going to be a few more weeks before I can read it, but I'm really excited for it. I'll make another video once I finish reading that. I'm really loving the series so far. I'm excited to watch it on Amazon Prime on the 20th when it comes out. I'm regretting that I waited so long to read these books because they really are amazing. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say about this. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, consider subscribing, and thank you so much.